Hey there, folks. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Wyoming, a state that's rich in history, culture, and natural beauty. Etymology: Wyoming's name is derived from the Lakota word money, which means at the big river. History: Wyoming was admitted to the United States in 1890, making it the 44th state. It's known for its vast landscapes, including the Rocky Mountains and Yellowstone National Park. Geography: Wyoming is the 10th largest state by area and the least populous state in the country. It's bordered by Montana, South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado, Utah, and Idaho. Demographics: Wyoming's population is predominantly white, with a significant Native American population. The state is known for its low population density. Economy and infrastructure: Wyoming's economy is primarily based on agriculture, energy, and tourism. The state has a well-developed infrastructure, including highways, railroads, and airports. Education: Wyoming has a strong education system, with a high school graduation rate of 85%. The University of Wyoming is the state's largest university. Media: Wyoming has a diverse media landscape, including newspapers, radio stations, and television stations. Government and politics: Wyoming is a state with a strong tradition of democracy. It has a bicameral legislature and a governor who serves a 4-year term. Culture: Wyoming's culture is a mix of Native American, Western, and modern influences. The state is known for its cowboy culture, rodeos, and stunning natural landscapes. That's a wrap for today's Wyoming 101. We hope you enjoyed this brief introduction to the state. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to follow and subscribe for more fascinating facts and information. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video. Wyoming, wye-OH-ming. Wyoming 9 is a landlocked state in the Mountain West subregion of the western United States. It borders Montana to the north and northwest, South Dakota and Nebraska to the east, Idaho to the west, Utah to the southwest, and Colorado to the south. With an estimated population of 587,618 as of 2024. 10. Wyoming is the least populous state despite being the 10th largest by area, and it has the second lowest population density after Alaska. The state capital and most populous city is Cheyenne, which had a population of 65,132 in 2020. 11. Wyoming's western half consists mostly of the ranges and rangelands of the Rocky Mountains. Its eastern half consists of high-elevation prairie, and is referred to as the High Plains. Wyoming's climate is semi-arid in some parts and continental in others, making it drier and windier overall than other states, with greater temperature extremes. The federal government owns just under half of Wyoming's land, generally protecting it for public use. The state ranks 6th in the amount of land and 5th in the proportion of its land that is owned by the federal government. 12. Its federal lands include to national parks Grand Teton and Yellowstone, to national recreation areas, to national monuments, and several national forests, as well as historic sites, fish hatcheries, and wildlife refuges. Indigenous peoples inhabited the region for thousands of years. Historic and currently federally recognized tribes include the Arapaho, Crow, Lakota, and Shoshone. Part of the land that became Wyoming came under American sovereignty via the Louisiana Purchase, part via the Oregon Treaty, and, lastly, via the Mexican Cession. With the opening of the Oregon Trail, the Mormon Trail, and the California Trail, vast numbers of pioneers traveled through parts of the state that had once been traversed mainly by fur trappers. And this spurred the establishment of forts, such as Fort Laramie, that today serve as population centers. 13. The Transcontinental Railroad supplanted the wagon trails in 1867 with a route through southern Wyoming. 14. Bringing new settlers and the establishment of founding towns, including the state capital of Cheyenne. 15. On March 27, 1890, Wyoming became the Union's 44th state. 1. The Republican presidential nominee has carried the state in every election since 1968. 16. Wyoming was the first state to allow women the right to vote after New Jersey, which had allowed it until 1807, and the right to assume elected office, as well as the first state to elect a female governor. In honor of this part of its history, its official nickname is the Equality State, and its official state motto is Equal Rights. 1. Farming and ranching. and the attendant range wars feature prominently in the state's history. Wyoming's economy is largely based on tourism and the extraction of minerals such as coal, natural gas, oil, and trona. Its agricultural commodities include barley, hay, livestock, sugar beets, wheat, and wool. Wyoming does not require the beneficial owners of LLCs to be disclosed in the filing, which creates an opportunity for a tax haven. Wyoming levies no individual or corporate income tax and no tax on retirement income. Etymology: the region had acquired the name Wyoming by 1865 when Representative James Mitchell Ashley of Ohio introduced a bill to Congress to provide a temporary government for the territory of Wyoming. The territory was named after the Wyoming Valley in Pennsylvania. Thomas Campbell wrote his 1809 poem Gertrude of Wyoming, inspired by the Battle of Wyoming in the American Revolutionary War. The name ultimately derives from the Lenape-Muncie word wye-OH-ming at the Big River Flat, 1718. History. Main article: History of Wyoming. The first Fort Laramie as it looked before 1840. Painting from memory by Alfred Jacob Miller. Several Native American groups originally inhabited the region today known as Wyoming. The Crow, Arapaho, Lakota, and Shoshone were but a few of the original inhabitants European explorers encountered when they first visited the region. What is now southwestern Wyoming was claimed by the Spanish Empire, which extended through the southwest and Mexico. With Mexican independence in 1821, it was considered part of Alta California. U.S. expansion brought settlers who fought for control. Mexico ceded these territories after its defeat in 1848 in the Mexican-American War. From the late 18th century, French-Canadian trappers from Quebec and Montreal regularly entered the area for trade with the tribes. French toponyms such as Teton and La Ramée are marks of that history. 19. American John Coulter first recorded a description in English of the region in 1807. He was a member of the Lewis and Clark expedition, which was guided by French-Canadian Toussaint Charbonneau and his young Shoshone wife, Sacagawea. At the time, Coulter's reports of the Yellowstone area were considered fictional. 20 on a return from Astoria, Robert Stewart and a party of 5 men discovered South Pass in 1812. 19. The Oregon Trail later followed that route as emigrants moved to the West Coast. In 1850, mountain man Jim Bridger first documented what is now known as Bridger Pass. 21. Bridger also explored Yellowstone and filed reports on the region that, like Coulter's, were largely regarded at the time as tall tales. The Union Pacific Railroad constructed track through Bridger Pass in 1868. 21. It was used as the route for construction of Interstate 80 through the mountains 90 years later. 22. After the Union Pacific Railroad reached Cheyenne in 1867, population growth was stimulated. The federal government established the Wyoming Territory on July 25, 1868. 23. Lacking significant deposits of gold and silver, unlike mineral-rich Colorado, Wyoming did not have such a population boom. But South Pass City had a short-lived boom after the Carissa mine began producing gold in 1867. 24. Copper was mined in some areas between the Sierra Madre Mountains and the Snowy Range near Grand Encampment. 25. Once government-sponsored expeditions to the Yellowstone country began, Coulter's and Bridger's descriptions of the region's landscape were confirmed. In 1872, Yellowstone National Park was created as the world's first to protect this area. Nearly all of the park lies within the northwestern corner of Wyoming. On July 10, 1940, the U.S. Post Office issued a postage stamp commemorating the 50th anniversary of Wyoming's statehood. The engraving depicts the Wyoming state seal, which features a central figure of a woman in front of a banner reading "Equal Rights." On December 10, 1869, Territorial Governor John Allen Campbell extended the right to vote to women, making Wyoming the first territory to do so, and upon statehood became the first state to grant women suffrage. 26 women first served on juries in Wyoming Laramie in 1870. Wyoming was also a pioneer in welcoming women into electoral politics. 27. It had the first female court bailiff, Mary Atkinson, Laramie, in 1870, and the first female justice of the peace in the country, Esther Hobart Morris, South Pass City, in 1870. In 1924, Wyoming was the first state to elect a female governor, Nellie Taylor Ross, who took office in January 1925. 28. Due to its civil rights history, One of Wyoming's state nicknames is the Equality State, and the official state motto is Equal Rights. 1. Wyoming's constitution also included a pioneering article on water rights. 29 bills for Wyoming Territory's admission to the Union were introduced in both the U.S. Senate and U.S. House of Representatives in December 1889. On March 27, 1890, the House passed the bill and President Benjamin Harrison signed Wyoming's statehood bill. Wyoming became the 44th state in the Union. 1. Wyoming was the location of the Johnson County War of 1892, which erupted between competing groups of cattle ranchers. The passage of the Homestead Act led to an influx of small ranchers. A range war broke out when either or both of the groups chose violent conflict over commercial competition in the use of the public land. Geography. Main article, Geography of Wyoming. Climate. Further information. Climate change in Wyoming. Köppen climate types of Wyoming, using 1991 to 2020 climate normals, autumn in the Bighorn Mountains. Wyoming's climate is generally semi-arid and continental. Köppen climate classification (DSK) and is drier and windier in comparison to most of the United States, with greater temperature extremes. 30-31 Much of this is due to the topography of the state. Summers in Wyoming are warm with July high temperatures averaging between 80 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 and 32 degrees Celsius in most of the state. With increasing elevation, however, this average drops rapidly, with locations above 9,000 feet 2,700 meters averaging around 70 degrees Fahrenheit 21 degrees Celsius. Summer nights throughout the state are characterized by a rapid cooldown, with even the hottest locations averaging in the 50-60 degrees Fahrenheit 10-16 degrees Celsius range at night. In most of the state, most of the precipitation tends to fall in the late spring and early summer. Winters are cold, but are variable, with periods of sometimes extreme cold interspersed between generally mild periods, with Chinook winds providing unusually warm temperatures in some locations. Wyoming is a dry state, with much of the land receiving less than 10 inches (250 millimeters) of rainfall per year. Precipitation depends on elevation, with lower areas in the Bighorn Basin averaging 5 to 8 inches (130 to 200 millimeters), making the area nearly a true desert. The lower areas in the north and on the eastern plains typically average around 10 to 12 inches (250 to 300 millimeters), making the climate there semi-arid. Some mountain areas do receive a good amount of precipitation, 20 inches (510 millimeters) or more. Much of it is snow, sometimes 200 inches (510 centimeters) or more annually. The state's highest recorded temperature is 114 degrees Fahrenheit 46 degrees Celsius at Basin on July 12, 1900, and the lowest recorded temperature 66 degrees Fahrenheit 54 degrees Celsius at Riverside on February 9. The number of thunderstorm days varies across the state, with the southeastern plains of the state having the most days of thunderstorm activity. Thunderstorm activity in the state is highest during the late spring and early summer. The southeastern corner of the state is the most vulnerable part of the state to tornado activity. Moving away from that point and westwards, the incidence of tornadoes drops dramatically, with the west part of the state showing little vulnerability. Tornadoes, where they occur, tend to be small and brief, unlike some of those that occur farther east. Location and size, as specified in the designating legislation for the territory of Wyoming. Wyoming's borders are lines of latitude 41 and for 5 and longitude 1043 and 1113 W27 and 30 for west of the Washington Meridian, a geodesic quadrangle. 34. Wyoming is one of only 3 states, the others being Colorado and Utah, to have borders defined by only straight lines. Due to surveying inaccuracies during the 19th century, Wyoming's legal border deviates from the true latitude and longitude lines by up to 1/2 mile (0.80 kilometers) in some spots, especially in the mountainous region along the 45th parallel. 35. Wyoming is bordered on the north by Montana, on the east by South Dakota and Nebraska, on the south by Colorado, on the southwest by Utah, and on the west by Idaho. It is the 10th largest state in the United States in total area, containing 97,814 square miles, 253,340 square kilometers, and is made up of 23 counties. From the north border to the south border, it is 276 miles (444 kilometers). And from the east to the west border is 365 miles 587 kilometers at its south end and 342 miles 550 kilometers. Mountain ranges: Teton Range, Green River Valley. The Great Plains meet the Rocky Mountains in Wyoming. The state is a great plateau broken by many mountain ranges. Surface elevations range from the summit of Gannett Peak in the Wine River Mountain Range at 13,804 feet (4,207 meters) to the Belforche River Valley in the state's northeast corner at 3,125 feet (952 meters). In the northwest are the Absaroka, Owl Creek, Gros Ventre, Wine River, and the Teton Ranges. In the north-central are the Bighorn Mountains, in the northeast, the Black Hills, and in the southern region the Laramie, Snowy, and Sierra Madre Ranges. The Snowy Range in the south-central part of the state is an extension of the Colorado Rockies, both in geology and in appearance. The Wine River Range in the west-central part of the state is remote and includes more than 40 mountain peaks in excess of 13,000 feet (4,000 meters) tall in addition to Gannett Peak, the highest peak in the state. The Bighorn Mountains in the north-central portion are somewhat isolated from the bulk of the Rocky Mountains. The Teton Range in the northwest extends for 50 miles 80 kilometers, part of which is included in Grand Teton National Park. The park includes the Grand Teton, the second highest peak in the state. The Continental Divide spans north-south across the central portion of the state. Rivers east of the divide drain into the Missouri River Basin and eventually the Gulf of Mexico. They are the North Platte, Wine, Bighorn, and Yellowstone rivers. The Snake River in northwest Wyoming eventually drains into the Columbia River and the Pacific Ocean, as does the Green River through the Colorado River Basin. The Continental Divide forks in the south-central part of the state in an area known as the Great Divide Basin, where water that precipitates onto or flows into it cannot reach an ocean. It all sinks into the soil and eventually evaporates. Several rivers begin in or flow through the state, including the Yellowstone River, Bighorn River, Green River, and the Snake River. Basins. Much of Wyoming is covered with large basins containing different ecoregions, from shrublands to smaller patches of desert. 36 regions of the state classified as basins contain everything from large geologic formations to sand dunes and vast, unpopulated spaces. 37 basin landscapes are typically lower elevations and include rolling hills, valleys, mesas, terraces, and other rugged terrain, but also include natural springs as well as rivers and artificial reservoirs. 38 They have common plant species such as various subspecies of sagebrush, juniper, and grasses such as wheatgrass, but basins are known for their diversity of plant and animal species. 36 Islands. For a more comprehensive list, see List of Islands of Wyoming. Wyoming has 32 named islands. The majority are in Jackson Lake and Yellowstone Lake, within Yellowstone National Park in the northwest portion of the state. The Green River in the southwest also contains a number of islands. Wyoming license plates have a number on the left that indicates the county where the vehicle is registered, ranked by an earlier census, 39 specifically. The numbers are representative of the property values of the counties in 1930, 40. The county license plate numbers are: demographics, historical population, census pop, no % plus or minus. 1879,118. 1880 20,789 128.0%. 1890 62,555 200.9%. 1990 2,531 47.9%. 1910 145,965 57.7%. 1920 194,400 to 33.2%. 1930 225,565 16.0%. 1940 250,740 to 11.2%. 1950 290,529 15.9%. 1960 330,066 13.6%. 1970 332,416 0.7%. 1980 469,557 41.3%. 1990 453,588 3.4%. 2,000 493,782 8.9%. 2010 587,618 41 1.9%. Sources: 1910 to 2020 42. Population. The largest population centers are Cheyenne Southeast and Casper. The 2020 United States Census counted 576,851 people living in Wyoming. The center of population of Wyoming is in Natrona County, 40 for 45 sparsely populated. Wyoming is the least populous state of the United States. Wyoming has the second lowest population density in the country behind Alaska and is the sparsest populated of the 48 contiguous states. It is one of only 2 states with a population smaller than that of the nation's capital. The only other state with this distinction is Vermont. According to HUD's 2022 Annual Homeless Assessment Report, there were an estimated 648 homeless people in Wyoming, 4647. According to the 2020 census, the population's racial composition was 84.7% white, 81.4% non-Hispanic white, 2.4% American Indian and Alaska Native, 0.9% Black or African American, 0.9% Asian American, and 0.1% Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, 3.5% from some other race, and 7.5% from 2 or more races. 48 as of 2011, 24.9% of Wyoming's population younger than age 1 or minor. According to data from the American Community Survey, as of 2018, Wyoming was the only U.S. state where African Americans earn a higher median income than white workers. 50. Ethnic origins in Wyoming. As of 2015, Wyoming had an estimated population of 586,107, which was an increase of 1,954, or 0.29%, from the prior year and an increase of 22,481, or 3.99%, since the 2010 census. This includes a natural increase since the last census of 12,165, 33,700 for births minus 21,539 deaths, and an increase from net migration of 4,035 into the state. Immigration resulted in a net increase of 2,260 for and migration within the country produced a net increase of 1,771. In 2004, the foreign-born population was 11,002.2%. In 2005, total births in Wyoming were 7,231, birth rate of 14.0 per thousand. 51. Wyoming experienced its first population decline since 1990. With a decrease of just over 1,000 people, 0.2%, from July 2015 to July 2016. This decline is attributed to the downturn in the state's mineral extraction industry, particularly the oil and gas sector, which led to the loss of thousands of jobs. However, state economist Jim Robinson noted signs of economic stabilization. Job losses in the oil and gas industry appeared to have leveled off, and there was a slight increase in drilling activity in recent months. While the state's economy showed little growth, it was considered to have reached a more stable condition as of late 2016. 52. According to the 2000 census, the largest ancestry groups in Wyoming were German 25.9%, English 15.9%, Irish 13.3%, and American Indian 4.7%. An additional 6.4% responded with American as their ancestry. 53. In 2018, the top countries of origin for Wyoming's immigrants were Mexico, China, Germany, England, and Canada. 54. Birth data. Map of counties in Wyoming by racial plurality, per the 2020 U.S. Census. Legend. Note: births in table do not add up, because Hispanics are counted both by their ethnicity and by their race, giving a higher overall number. Religion. Religious self-identification. Public Religion Research Institute's 2020 American Values Atlas Survey. 68. Unaffiliated 40%. Protestantism 33%. Catholicism 15%. Mormonism 7%. Judaism 1%. Other 4%. In 2020, the Public Religion Research Institute determined that about 55% of Wyoming's adult population was Christian, primarily evangelical and mainline Protestant, Roman Catholic, and Mormon. 69. The Public Religion Research Institute survey documented a decrease in religiosity from a 2014 separate Pew Research Center study. 70. According to the Public Religion Research Institute, the unaffiliated made up 40% of the state population by 2020. According to a 2013 Gallup poll, Wye-OH-ming's religious affiliations were 49% Protestant, 23% non-religious or other, 18% Catholic, 9% Latter-day Saint Mormons, and less than 1% Jewish. 71. A 2010 Association of Religion Data Archives (ARDO) report recognized as Wyoming's largest denominations the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints (LDS Church) with 62,800 for 11%. The Catholic Church with 61,220 to 10.8%. And the Southern Baptist Convention with 15,800. The report counted 59,247 evangelical Protestants, 10.5%, 36,539 mainline Protestants, 6.5%, 785 Eastern Orthodox Christians, 281 Black Protestants, 65,000 adhering to other traditions, and 340,550 to claiming no religious tradition, 72 in 2020. ARDO reported the state's largest individual denominations as the following: the Catholic Church 69,500, the LDS Church 67,729, and the Southern Baptist Convention 11,082. Non-denominational Protestants were 23,410 in number, 73. According to ARDA's 2020 report, the Roman Catholics had an adherence rate of 120.48 per 1,000 people, Mormons 117.41 per 1,000 people, and Southern Baptists 19.21 per 1,000 people. Non-denominational Protestants had an adherence rate of 40.58 per 1,000 people. These trends reflected the separate 2014 Pew Studies' varying attendance at religious services. In 2014, 38% visited a religious service at least once a week, 28% once or twice a month, and 32% seldom. Never. 70. A 2018 research article by the National Christian Foundation cited non-church-going Christians nationwide did not attend religious services often through practicing the faith in other ways, not finding a house of worship they liked, disliking sermons and feeling unwelcomed, and logistics. 74. Economy and infrastructure. Further information: list of Wyoming locations by per capita income, and list of power stations in Wyoming, wine farm in Uintah County. According to a United States Bureau of Economic Analysis report, Wyoming's gross state product in 2022 was $49.8 billion, 75 as of 2014. The population was growing slightly with the most growth in tourist-oriented areas, such as Teton County. Boom conditions in neighboring states, such as North Dakota, were drawing energy workers away. About half of Wyoming's counties showed population loss. 76. The state makes active efforts through Wyoming Grown, an internet-based recruitment program, to find jobs for young people educated in Wyoming who have emigrated but may wish to return. 77. The mineral extraction industry and travel and tourism sector are the main drivers of Wyoming's economy. 78. The federal government owns about 42.3% of its landmass, while the state controls 6%. 78. The total taxable value of mining production in Wyoming in 2007 was over $14.5 billion. In 2018, tourism industry contributed approximately $3.8 billion is spending from domestic and international visitors. 78. In 2002, more than 6 million people visited Wyoming's national parks and monuments. Wyoming's main tourist attractions include Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone National Park, Devil's Tower National Monument, Independence Rock and Fossil Butte National Monument. Yellowstone, established in 1872 as the world's first national park, attracts over 3 million visitors each year. Historically, agriculture has been an important component of Wyoming's economy. Its overall importance to the economy has waned, but it is still an essential part of Wyoming's culture and lifestyle. The main agricultural commodities Wyoming produces include livestock beef, hay, sugar beets, grain wheat and barley, and wool. More than 91% of Wyoming's land is classified as rural. Wyoming is the home of only a handful of companies with a regional or national presence. Taco John's and Sierra Trading Post, both in Cheyenne, are privately held. Cloud Peak Energy in Gillette and U.S. Energy Corp., NASDAQ, USIC, in Riverton or Wyoming's only publicly traded companies. Various initiatives have been put in place and legislation adopted to encourage the use of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies in the state. 79 Tyler Lindholm, a former state legislator, claimed that 500 member-owned limited liability companies built on blockchain had been established and that 17,000 businesses with crypto in their name were registered by 2023. State legislators appointed a commission in 2023 to create a stablecoin, aiming to be the first cryptocurrency created by a U.S. state. 808182. Mineral and energy production. Wyoming's mineral commodities include coal, natural gas, coalbed methane, crude oil, uranium, and trona. Natural gas, also fossil gas, methane gas, and gas, is a naturally occurring compound of gaseous hydrocarbons, primarily methane 95%, one small amounts of higher alkanes, and traces of carbon dioxide and nitrogen, hydrogen sulfide, and helium. To methane is a colorless and odorless gas, and, after carbon dioxide, is the second greatest greenhouse gas that contributes to global climate change. 3 for because natural gas is odorless. A commercial odorizer, such as methanethyl mercaptan brand, that smells of hydrogen sulfide rotten eggs is added to the gas for the ready detection of gas leaks. 5. Natural gas is a fossil fuel that is formed when layers of organic matter, primarily marine microorganisms, 6 are thermally decomposed under oxygen-free conditions, subjected to intense heat and pressure underground over millions. The energy that the decayed organisms originally obtained from the sun via photosynthesis is stored as chemical energy within the molecules of methane and other hydrocarbons. 8. Natural gas can be burned for heating, cooking, 9. and electricity generation. Consisting mainly of methane, natural gas is rarely used as a chemical feedstock. The extraction and consumption of natural gas is a major industry. When burned for heat or electricity, natural gas emits fewer toxic air pollutants, less carbon dioxide, and almost no particulate matter compared to other fossil fuels. 10. However, gas venting and unintended fugitive emissions throughout the supply chain can result in natural gas having a similar carbon footprint to other fossil fuels overall. 11. Natural gas can be found in underground geological formations, often alongside other fossil fuels, like coal and oil petroleum. Most natural gas has been created through either biogenic or thermogenic processes. Thermogenic gas takes a much longer period of time to form and is created when organic matter is heated and compressed deep underground. 12. 7 methanogenic organisms produce methane from a variety of sources, principally carbon dioxide. During petroleum production, natural gas is sometimes flared rather than being collected and used. Before natural gas can be burned as a fuel or used in manufacturing processes, it almost always has to be processed to remove impurities such as water. The byproducts of this processing include ethane, propane, butanes, pentanes, and higher molecular weight hydrocarbons. Hydrogen sulfide, which may be converted into pure sulfur, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and sometimes helium and nitrogen, must also be removed. Natural gas is sometimes informally referred to simply as gas, especially when it is being compared to other energy sources, such as oil, coal, or renewables. However, it is not to be confused with gasoline, which is also shortened in colloquial usage to gas, especially in North America. 13. Coalbed methane CBM, or coalbed methane. 1. Coalbed gas, or coal seam gas CSG1, is a form of natural gas extracted from coal beds. 2. In recent decades it has become an important source of energy in the United States, Canada, Australia, and other countries. The term refers to methane absorbed into the solid matrix of the coal. It is called sweet gas because of its lack of hydrogen sulfide. The presence of this gas is well known from its occurrence in underground coal mining, where it presents a serious safety risk. Coalbed methane is distinct from a typical sandstone or other conventional gas reservoir, as the methane is stored within the coal, a process called adsorption. The methane is in a near-liquid state, lining the inside of pores within the coal called the matrix. The open fractures in the coal called the cleats can also contain free gas or can be saturated with water. Petroleum, also known as crude oil or simply oil, is a naturally occurring, yellowish-black liquid chemical mixture found in geological formations, consisting mainly of hydrocarbons. 1. The term petroleum refers both to naturally occurring, unprocessed crude oil, as well as to petroleum products that consist of refined crude oil. Petroleum is a fossil fuel formed over millions of years from anaerobic decay of organic materials from buried prehistoric organisms, particularly planktons and algae. And 70% of the world's oil deposits were formed during the Mesozoic. To conventional reserves of petroleum are primarily recovered by drilling, which is done after a study of the relevant structural geology, analysis of the sedimentary basin, and characterization of the petroleum reservoir. There are also unconventional reserves such as oil sands and oil shale, which are recovered by other means such as fracking. Once extracted, oil is refined and separated, most easily by distillation, into innumerable products for direct use or use in manufacturing. Petroleum products include fuels such as gasoline, petrol, diesel, kerosene and jet fuel, bitumen, paraffin, wax and lubricants, reagents used to make plastics, solvents, textiles, refrigerants, paint, synthetic rubber, fertilizers, pesticides, pharmaceuticals, and thousands of other petrochemicals. Petroleum is used in manufacturing a vast variety of materials, essential for modern life. 3. And it is estimated that the world consumes about 100 million barrels, 16 million cubic meters each day. Petroleum production played a key role in industrialization and economic development, for especially after the Second Industrial Revolution. Some petroleum-rich countries, known as petrostates, gained significant economic and international influence during the latter half of the 20th century due to their control of oil production and trade. Petroleum is a non-renewable resource, and exploitation can be damaging to both the natural environment, climate system, and human health. See health and environmental impact of the petroleum industry. Extraction, refining and burning of petroleum fuels reverse the carbon sink and release large quantities of greenhouse gases back into the Earth's atmosphere, so petroleum is one of the major contributors to anthropogenic climate change. Other negative environmental effects include direct releases, such as oil spills, as well as air and water pollution at almost all stages of use. Oil access and pricing have also been a source of domestic and geopolitical conflicts, leading to state-sanctioned oil wars, diplomatic and trade frictions, energy policy disputes, and other resource conflicts. Production of petroleum is estimated to reach peak oil before 2035 as global economies lower dependencies on petroleum as part of climate change mitigation and a transition towards more renewable energy and electrification. 6. Unlike much natural gas from conventional reservoirs, coalbed methane contains very little heavier hydrocarbons such as propane or butane, and no natural gas condensate. It often contains up to a few percent carbon dioxide. Coalbed methane is generally formed due to thermal maturation of carrigan and organic matter, in contrast to coal seams with regular groundwater recharge, where methane is typically generated by microbial communities living in situ. 3-4. Natural gas is measured in standard cubic meters or standard cubic feet. To density compared to air ranges from 0.58 16.8 g mole, 0.71 kilograms per standard cubic meter, to as high as 0.79 22.9 grams mole, 0.97 kilograms per SCM, but generally less than 0.6 for 18.5 g mole, 0.78 kilograms per SCM. For comparison, pure methane 16.0 for to 5 grams mole has a density 0.5539 times that of air, 0.678 kilograms per standard cubic meter. Uranium is a chemical element. It has symbol U and atomic number 92. It is a silvery gray metal in the actinide series of the periodic table. A uranium atom has 92 protons and 92 electrons, of which 6 are valence electrons. Uranium radioactively decays, usually by emitting an alpha particle. The half-life of this decay varies between 159,200 and 4.5 billion years for different isotopes, making them useful for dating the age of the Earth. The most common isotopes in natural uranium are uranium-238, which has 146 neutrons and accounts for over 99% of uranium on Earth, and uranium-235, which has 143 neutrons. Uranium has the highest atomic weight of the primordially occurring elements. Its density is about 70% higher than that of lead and slightly lower than that of gold or tungsten. It occurs naturally in low concentrations of a few parts per million in soil, rock and water, and is commercially extracted from uranium-bearing minerals such as uraninite. 9. Many contemporary uses of uranium exploit its unique nuclear properties. Uranium is used in nuclear power plants and nuclear weapons because it is the only naturally occurring element with a fissile isotope, uranium-235, present in non-trace amounts. However, because of the low abundance of uranium-235 in natural uranium, which is overwhelmingly uranium-238, uranium needs to undergo enrichment so that enough uranium-235 is present. Uranium-238 is fissionable by fast neutrons and is fertile, meaning it can be transmuted to fissile plutonium-239 in a nuclear reactor. Another fissile isotope, uranium-233, can be produced from natural thorium and is studied for future industrial use in nuclear technology. Uranium-238 has a small probability for spontaneous fission or even induced fission with fast neutrons. Uranium-235, and to a lesser degree uranium-233, have a much higher fission cross-section for slow neutrons. In sufficient concentration, these isotopes maintain a sustained nuclear chain reaction. This generates the heat in nuclear power reactors and produces a fissile material for nuclear weapons. The primary civilian use for uranium harnesses the heat energy to produce electricity. Depleted uranium-238U is used in kinetic energy penetrators and armor plating. 10. The 1789 discovery of uranium in the mineral pitchblende is credited to Martin Heiner Klaproth, who named the new element after the recently discovered planet Uranus. Eugene Melchior Peligot was the first person to isolate the metal, and its radioactive properties were discovered in 1896 by Henry Becquerel. Research by Otto Hahn, Lisa Meitner, Enrico Fermi and others, such as J. Robert Oppenheimer starting in 1930 led to its use as a fuel in the nuclear power industry and in Little Bow, the first nuclear weapon used in war. An ensuing arms race during the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union produced tens of thousands of nuclear weapons that used uranium metal and uranium-derived plutonium-239. Dismantling of these weapons and related nuclear facilities is carried out within various nuclear disarmament programs and costs billions of dollars. Weapon-grade uranium obtained from nuclear weapons is diluted with uranium-238 and reused as fuel for nuclear reactors. Spent nuclear fuel forms radioactive waste, which mostly consists of uranium-238 and poses a significant health threat and environmental impact. Tronitrizodium hydrogen-carbonate dihydrate, also sodium sesquicarbonate dihydrate, not a CO3, NaHCO3, 2H2O, is a non-marine evaporite mineral. 6. It is mined as the primary source of sodium carbonate in the United States, where it has replaced the Solvay process used in most of the rest of the world for sodium carbonate production. Turkey is also a major producer. Etymology: the word entered English by way of either Swedish trona or Spanish trona, with both possible sources having the same meaning as in English. The mineral natron from North Africa. Both the Spanish and Swedish seven terms derive from the Arabic tron, which in turn derives from Arabic natron and Hebrew natruna, which comes from ancient Greek bertrok nitron, derived ultimately from ancient Egyptian tri or nitri. Coal. Wyoming produced 277 million short tons, 251 million metric tons of coal in 2019, a 9% drop from 2018. 85. Wyoming's coal production peaked in 2008 when 514 million short tons for 166 million metric tons were produced. 85. Wyoming has a reserve of 68.7 billion tons, 62.3 billion metric tons of coal. Major coal areas include the Powder River Basin and the Green River Basin. In 2002, coal-bed methane extraction, CBM, a method for the extracting of methane, yielded 327.5 billion cubic feet, 9.3 cubic kilometers. Citation needed. In 2016, Wyoming produced 1.77 trillion cubic feet, 50 billion cubic meters of natural gas, ranking the state sixth nationwide in natural gas production. 86. The short ton abbreviation, TN1 or Street 2, also known as the U.S. ton, 3, is a measurement unit equal to 2,000 pounds 907.18 kilograms. It is commonly used in the United States, where it is known simply as a ton. However, the term is ambiguous, the single word ton being variously used for short, long, and metric tons. The various tons are defined as units of mass, they are sometimes used as units of weight, the force exerted by a mass, standard gravity for example, short ton force. 1 short ton exerts a weight at 1 standard gravity of 2,000 pound force lbf. United States. In the United States, a short ton is usually known simply as a ton, one without distinguishing it from the ton 1,000 kilograms or 2,204.62 pounds, known there as the metric ton, or the long ton also known as the imperial ton 2,240 pounds or 1,016.05 kilograms. There are, however, some U.S. applications where unspecified tons normally mean long tons, for example, naval ships 5 or metric tons world grain production figures. Both the long and short ton are defined as 20 hundredweights, but a hundredweight is 100 pounds 45.36 kilograms in the U.S. system short or net hundredweight, and 112 pounds 50.80 kilograms in the imperial system long or gross hundredweight. 1. A short ton force is 2,000 pounds force 8,800. See also, coal mining in Wyoming has long been a significant part of the state's economy. Wyoming has been the largest producer of coal in the United States since 1986, and in 2018. Coal mines employ approximately 1% of the state's population. In 2013, there were 17 active coal mines in Wyoming, which produced 388 million short tons, 39% of all the coal mine in the U.S., and more than 3 times the production of second place, West Virginia. 3 market forces, including the low price of natural gas from the fracking boom. Coal's main competition contributed to the steep drop in coal production in the 2000s as electricity generation switched from coal to gas. 4. The Powder River Basin is a geologic structural basin in southeast Montana and northeast Wyoming, about 120 miles 190 kilometers east to west and 200 miles 320 kilometers north to south, known for its extensive coal reserves. The former hunting grounds of the Oglala Lakota, the area is very sparsely populated and is known for its rolling grasslands and semi-arid climate. The basin is both a topographic drainage and geologic structural basin, drained by the Powder River, after which it is named, Cheyenne River, Tongue River, Bighorn River, Little Missouri River, Platte River, and their tributaries. The major cities in the area include Gillette and Sheridan, Wyoming and Miles City, Montana. In 2007, the region produced 436 million short tons, 396 million tons of coal, more than twice the production of second place, West Virginia, and more than the entire Appalachian region. The Powder River Basin is the largest coal-producing region in the United States. 2. The region includes the Black Thunder Coal Mine, the most productive in the United States, and North Antelope Rochelle Mine, the second most productive. In recent years, the region has become a major producer of natural gas, both conventional natural gas and coal bed methane. The Green River, located in the western United States, is the chief tributary of the Colorado River. The watershed of the river, known as the Green River Basin, covers parts of the U.S. states of Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. The Green River is 730 miles 1,170 kilometers long, beginning in the Wine River Range of Wyoming and flowing through Wyoming and Utah for most of its course, except for a short segment of 40 miles 64 kilometers in western Colorado. Much of the route traverses the arid Colorado Plateau, where the river has carved some of the most spectacular canyons in the United States. The Green is slightly smaller than Colorado when the two rivers merge, but typically carries a larger load of silt. The average yearly mean flow of the river at Green River, Utah, 6,121 cubic feet 173.3 cubic meters per second. 2. The status of the Green River as a tributary of the Colorado River came about mainly for political reasons. In earlier nomenclature, the Colorado River began at its confluence with the Green River. Above the confluence, Colorado was called the Grand River. In 1921, U.S. Representative Edward T. Taylor of Colorado petitioned the Congressional Committee on Interstate and foreign commerce to rename the Grand River as the Colorado River. On July 25, 1921, the name change was made official in House Joint Resolution 460 of the 66th Congress, over the objections of representatives from Wyoming and Utah and the United States Geological Survey, which noted that the drainage basin of the Green River was more extensive than that of the Grand River, for although the Grand carried a higher volume of water at its confluence with the Green River is the subject of the song Green River by C.W. McCall. Coalbed methane extraction, CBM extraction, is a method for extracting methane from a coal deposit. Coalbed methane CBM is one of the factors restricting the safe production of coal in underground coal mines. It is also a form of high-quality energy that can be used in many fields such as power generation, heating, and chemical industries. CBM extraction is therefore carried out before extraction with a view of increasing the safety of mining coal beds and as a useful energy resource to be exploited. 1. Oil. Wyoming produced 53.4 million barrels, 8.49 times 106 cubic meters of crude oil in 2007, ranking 5th nationwide in oil production. By 2022, Wyoming ranked 8th nationally in the production of both crude oil and natural gas and was the second largest producer of oil and gas on federal lands. At its peak in 2022, the state had 27,951 producing wells, including 10,120 oil wells and 17,800 gas wells. Wyoming's oil reserves were estimated at 978 million barrels at the end of 2021, representing 2.4% of U.S. reserves. The state had 4 operational refineries in 2022 with a combined refining capacity of 125,850 barrels per day, a significant reduction from the 14 refineries operating in 1981, 87 and 88. Wind energy. Further information. Wind power in Wyoming. Because of its geography and altitude, the potential for wind energy in Wyoming is one of the highest of any U.S. state. The Chokecherry and Sierra Madre Wind Energy Project is the largest commercial wind generation facility under development in North America. 89. Carbon County is home to the largest proposed wind farm in the nation. Construction plans have been halted because of proposed new taxes on wind power energy production. 90. Wyoming has one of the highest wind power potentials of any state in the United States. In 2019, Wyoming had wind-powered electricity generating capacity of 1,589 megawatts, which produced 9.85% of its electric generation, with an additional 3,753 megawatts under construction. However, the wind generation in that year was Wyoming's third lowest in the 2010s. 1. By 2020, wind capacity increased to 2,738 NW and 8,448 gigawatt-hours of electricity were produced from wind in 2021, 3 more than double 2019 production. Additional wind capacity and needed transmission lines are under construction or planned, despite political headwinds from Wyoming's strong coal and oil sectors. 4. Resource. Wyoming's geography of high-altitude prairies with broad ridges makes the state an ideal site for the development of wind resources. Other factors that positively affect Wyoming's wind power development potential include transmission capabilities. 5. The high energy needs of nearby population centers. 5. High public support of wind tower development in the state, 97% support. 6. And the historical importance of energy sectors to the state's economy. 7. Disadvantages to large-scale wind power production include competition from fossil fuels industry, as coal power provided 42.7 terawatt-hours, 90% of Wyoming electricity in 2016, compared to 3.8 terawatt-hours for wind. 9. Wyoming taxes wind power 10 with $1 MWH, which provided the state with $3.8 million in 2015. 8. The Big Hollow is a wind-eroded deflation basin located to the west of Laramie, Wyoming in the United States. It is the second largest wind-eroded depression in the world. The Big Hollow is the largest deflation basin in North America. The Chokecherry and Sierra Madre Wind Energy Project is large-scale wind farm currently under construction near Rawlins, Wyoming. If completed as scheduled in 2026, it will likely become the largest wind farm in the United States and one of the largest in the world. one to located largely on federal lands. The project is being built in conjunction with the Transwest Express transmission line to supply power to California. 3-4. Originally slated for completion in 2020, the finish date was extended to 2026 in 2019 amid permitting, environmental, and construction delays. 5. Other. The Kelsey Lake diamond mine in Colorado, less than 1,000 feet 300 meters from the Wyoming border, produced gem-quality diamonds for several years. The Wyoming Craton, which hosts the kimberlite volcanic pipes that were mined, underlies most of Wyoming. Wyoming possesses the world's largest known reserve of trona, 91, a mineral used in manufacturing glass, paper, soaps, baking soda, water softeners, and pharmaceuticals. In 2008, Wyoming produced 46 million short tons, 41.7 million metric tons of trona, 25% of the world's production. 91. Although uranium mining in Wyoming is much less active than in previous decades, a sharp rise in uranium prices in 2007 spurred new interest in prospecting and mining. 92. In 2024, the uranium industry in the state experienced a significant resurgence due to a sharp increase in uranium prices. 93. Rare earth metals are also among Wyoming's mineral commodities. 94. Kelsey Lake Diamond Mine is a defunct diamond mine in Colorado, USA. It is located in the state-line kimberlite district near the Wyoming border and consists of 9 kimberlite volcanic pipes, of which 2 are open-pit mined. At the time it was operating, it was the United States' only modern diamond mine and only the second commercial diamond mining operation in North America, the first being in the Crater of Diamonds State Park, Arkansas, which was mined in the early 1900s. 1. History. Ever since diamonds had first been found in the state-line kimberlite district in 1976, interest had been high in locating a viable commercial mining operation. Geologist Howard Cooper Smith headed the diamond company LN, which explored the feasibility of mining diamonds at the Kelsey Lake site. In 1995, Australian firm wye-OH-ming acquired controlling interest in Diamond Co. and proceeded to lease mining rights for the land around Kelsey Lake. 3. Commercial output started in May 1996. After mining and selling approximately 200 carats worth of diamonds, wye-OH-ming was sued by Union Pacific, who had originally sold the land in 1896, but claimed that it held on to the mineral rights. 4. The two parties settled a lawsuit, but in September 1997 wye-OH-ming decided to liquidate its diamond properties to concentrate on exploration. The mine was operated sporadically until the operation was acquired by Mackenzie Bay International Ltd. In 2000, Mackenzie bought the mine management firm Diamond Co. from Chapter 11 bankruptcy, transferred all its assets to a subsidiary, Great Western Diamond Co., and invested $2 million in new equipment for the mine. 5. In 2001, Mackenzie tried to sell the mine to focus on mining vanadium after the price of that metal rose dramatically. 6-7. However, due to a dispute with the landowner over royalty payments, the sale fell through and Mackenzie was unable to find another buyer. 8. The mine ceased operations in 2001, and the site was fully reclaimed by 2006. 9. Uranium mining in Wyoming was formerly a much larger industry, and it is today. Wyoming once had many operating uranium mines, and still has the largest known uranium ore reserves of any state in the U.S. At the end of 2008, the state had estimated reserves dependent on price, 539 million pounds of uranium oxide at $50 per pound, and 1,227 million pounds at $100 per pound. 1. Wyoming has produced a total of 84,000 tons of uranium, and from 1995 until 2015, actually led the nation in production. Total reserves as of 2015 still amounts to 141,000 tons at 0.065% grade. However, since the early 1990s, this production has been by the in situ leach method. 2. The Wyoming uranium mining industry was hard hit in the 1980s by the drop in the price of uranium. When the uranium price dropped, the uranium mining boom town of Jeffrey City lost 95% of its population in 3 years. 3. Taxes. Unlike most other states, Wyoming levies no individual or corporate income tax. It also assesses no tax on retirement income earned and received from another state. Wyoming has a state sales tax of 4%. Counties have the option to collect an additional 1% tax for general revenue and a 1% tax for specific purposes if approved by voters. Food for human consumption is not subject to sales tax. 95. A county lodging tax varies from 2% to 5%. The state collects use tax of 5% on items purchased elsewhere and brought into Wyoming. All property tax is based on the property's assessed value. Wyoming's Department of Revenue's ad valorem tax division supports, trains, and guides local government agencies in the uniform assessment, valuation, and taxation of locally assessed property. Assessed value means taxable value. Taxable value means a percentage of the fair market value of property in a particular class. Statutes limit property tax increases. For county revenue, the property tax rate cannot exceed 12 mils or 1.2% of assessed value. For cities and towns, the rate is limited to 8 mils 0.8%. With very few exceptions, state law limits the property tax rate for all governmental purposes. Citation needed. Personal property held for personal use is tax exempt. Inventory held for resale, pollution control equipment, cash, accounts receivable, stocks and bonds are also exempt. Other exemptions include property used for religious, educational, charitable, fraternal, benevolent, and government purposes and improvements for handicap access. Mine lands, underground mining equipment, and oil and gas extraction equipment are exempt from property tax, but companies must pay a gross products tax on minerals and a severance tax on mineral production. 96-97. Wyoming does not collect capital gains tax, gift tax, or estate tax. 98. In 2008, the Tax Foundation reported that Wyoming had the most business-friendly tax climate of any U.S. state. 99. Wyoming state and local governments in fiscal year 2007 collected $2.242 billion in taxes, levies, and royalties from the state's mineral industry, including oil, gas, trona, and coal, provided $1.3 billion in property taxes from 2006 mineral production, 87 as of 2017. Wyoming receives more federal tax dollars as a percentage of state general revenue than any state, except Montana, 100. As of 2016, Wyoming does not require the beneficial owners of LLCs to be disclosed in the filing, which creates an opportunity for a tax haven, according to Clark Stith of Clark Stith and Associates, 101. In fact, Wyoming was the first state to enact a statute authorizing the creation of LLCs. 100. By 2024, company registrations were higher per capita in Wyoming than those in Delaware, which is historically the most prominent U.S. tax haven. 103. Entities linked to foreign adversaries have been observed exploiting Wyoming's business filing policies for fraudulent purposes, prompting state legislators to draft bills for increased oversight and restrictions. One of these bills, targeting foreign adversaries, was signed into law on February 24, 2025. 100. For 103. Transportation. Further information. List of Wyoming railroads, list of airports in Wyoming, and list of state highways in Wyoming. Major highways of Wyoming. Wyoming's largest airport is Jackson Hole Airport, with more than 500 employees. 105. 3 interstate highways and 13 U.S. highways pass through Wyoming. The Wyoming State Highway System also serves the state. Interstate 25 enters Wyoming south of Cheyenne and runs north, intersecting Interstate 80 immediately west of Cheyenne. It passes through Casper and ends at Interstate 90. Near Buffalo. Interstate 80 crosses the Utah border west of Evanston and runs east through the southern third of the state, passing through Cheyenne before entering Nebraska near Pine Bluffs. Interstate 90 comes into Wyoming near Parkman and cuts through the northeastern part of the state. It serves Gillette and enters South Dakota east of Sundance. U.S. routes 14, 16, and the eastern section of US 20 have their western terminus at the eastern entrance to Yellowstone National Park and pass through Cody. US 14 runs eastward before joining I-90 at Gillette. US 14 then follows I-90 to the South Dakota border. US 16 and 20 split off of US 14 at Grable and US 16 turns east at Worland, while US 20 continues south Shoshone. US Route 287 runs from Fort Collins, Colorado, to Laramie, Wyoming, through a pass between the Laramie Mountains and the Medicine Bow Mountains, then merges with US 30 and I-80 until it reaches Rawlins, where it continues north, passing Lander. Outside of Moran, US 287 is part of a large interchange with US Highways 26, 191, and 89, before continuing north to Yellowstone southern entrance. US 287 continues north of Yellowstone, but the park separates the two sections. Other US highways that pass through Wyoming are 18, 26, 30, 85, 87, 89, 189, 191, 212, and 287. Wyoming is one of only two states. The other is South Dakota in the 48 contiguous states not served by Amtrak, 106. It was once served by Amtrak San Francisco Zephyr and Pioneer Lines, 107. While no passenger trains roll through Wyoming today, intercity buses continue to connect residents across the state. Intercity bus carriers in the state include Express Aero, Greyhound Lines, and Jefferson Lines, 108, 109, 110. Major interstates, I-25 300.5 miles connects Denver, Cheyenne, Casper and Buffalo. Most of the highway is connected with US 87. Major junctions include Interstate 80, US 30, US 85, US 26, US routes 18 and 20 and US 16 before its northern terminus at Interstate 90 in Buffalo. 1-80 for 102.8 miles connects Evanston, Rock Springs, Rawlins, Laramie and Cheyenne. Major junctions include US 191, US 287, I-25, and US 85 and I-180. 1-90 208.8 miles connects Sheridan, Buffalo and Gillette, primarily in northeastern Wyoming. Major junctions include US 14, I-25 and US 16. Wine River Indian Reservation. Main article: Wine River Indian Reservation, Wine River Canyon. The Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho tribes share the Wine River Indian Reservation in central western Wyoming, near Lander. The reservation is home to 2,500 Eastern Shoshone and 5,000 Northern Arapaho, 111. Chief Washakie established the reservation in 1868-112 as the result of negotiations with the federal government in the Fort Bridger Treaty. 113. But the federal government forced the Northern Arapaho onto the Shoshone Reservation in 1876 after it failed to provide a promised separate reservation. 113. Today the Wine River Indian Reservation is jointly owned, with each tribe having a 50% interest in the land, water, and other natural resources. 114. It is a sovereign, self-governed land with two independent governing bodies, the Eastern Shoshone Tribe and the Northern Arapaho Tribe. Until 2014, the Shoshone Business Council and Northern Arapaho Business Council met jointly as the Joint Business Council to decide matters that affect both tribes. 112. 6 elected council members from each tribe served on the Joint Council. Public lands, Wyoming terrain map. The federal government owns nearly half of Wyoming's land, about 30,099,430 acres, 121,808.1 square kilometers. The state owns another 3,864,800 acres, 15,640 square kilometers. 12. Most of it is administered by the Bureau of Land Management and U.S. Forest Service, numerous national forests and a national grassland, not to mention vast swaths of public land and an Air Force base near Cheyenne. National Park Service sites map. There are also areas managed by the National Park Service and agencies such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. National Parks: Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone National Park, first designated national park in the world. 115. Memorial Parkway. The John D. Rockefeller Jr. Memorial Parkway connects Yellowstone and Grand Teton. National Recreation Areas: Bighorn Canyon National Recreation Area, Flaming Gorge National Recreation Area managed by the Forest Service as part of Ashley National Forest. National Monuments: Devil's Tower National Monument, first national monument in the U.S. 115. Fossil Butte National Monument. National Historic Trails, Landmarks and Sites. California National Historic Trail, Fort Laramie National Historic Site. Independence Rock National Historic Landmark. Medicine Wheel, Medicine Mountain National Historic Landmark. Mormon Pioneer National Historic Trail, National Register of Historic Places listings in Wyoming. Oregon National Historic Trail, Pony Express National Historic Trail. National Fish Hatcheries, Jackson National Fish Hatchery, Saratoga National Fish Hatchery. National Wildlife Refuges, National Elk Refuge. Seed-Skady National Wildlife Refuge. Education. See also, List of school districts in Wyoming and List of high schools in Wyoming. The Rocky Mountain Herbarium at the University of Wyoming. The State Superintendent of Public Instruction, an elected state official, directs public education. The State Board of Education, a 9-member board appointed by the governor, sets educational policy. The Constitution prohibits the state from establishing curriculum and textbook selections. These are the prerogative of local school boards. The Wyoming School for the Deaf was the only in-state school dedicated to supporting deaf students before it closed in the summer of 2016. Higher education. For a more comprehensive list, see List of colleges and universities in Wyoming. Wyoming has a public 4-year institution, the University of Wyoming in Laramie, and a private 4-year college, Wyoming Catholic College, in Lander. There are also 7 2-year community colleges. Before the passing of a new law in 2006, Wyoming had hosted unaccredited institutions, many of them suspected diploma mills, 117. The 2006 law requires unaccredited institutions to make one of 3 choices: move out of Wyoming, close down, or apply for accreditation. The Oregon State Office of Degree Authorization predicted in 2007 that in a few years, the problem of diploma mills in Wyoming might be resolved. 118. Media. Main articles. List of television stations in Wyoming. List of newspapers in Wyoming. And list of radio stations in Wyoming. Wyoming's media market consists of 16 broadcast TV stations, radio stations, and dozens of small to medium-sized newspapers, 119, 120, 121. There are also a few small independent news sources such as the non-profit news site wye-OH-ming, 122, and Oil City News, 123. The following is a list of FCC-licensed radio stations in the U.S. state of Wyoming, which can be sorted by their call signs, frequencies, cities of license, licensees, and programming formats. Government and politics. Further information. Wyoming Constitution and elections in Wyoming. Wyoming State Capitol Building, Cheyenne. State government. Wyoming's Constitution established 3 branches of government: the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The state legislature comprises a House of Representatives with 60 members and a Senate with 30 members. The executive branch is headed by the governor and includes a Secretary of State, Auditor, Treasurer, and Superintendent of Public Instruction. As Wyoming does not have a lieutenant governor, the Secretary of State is first in the line of succession. Wyoming's sparse population warrants the state only 1 at-large seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, and hence only 3 votes in the Electoral College. The Wyoming State Liquor Association is the state's sole legal wholesale distributor of spirits, making it an alcoholic beverage control state. With the exception of wine, state law prohibits the purchase of alcoholic beverages for resale from any other source. 124. Judicial system. Wyoming's highest court is the Supreme Court of Wyoming, with 5 justices presiding over appeals from the state's lower courts. Wyoming is unusual in that it does not have an intermediate appellate court, like most states. This is largely attributable to the state's population and correspondingly lower caseload. Appeals from the state district courts go directly to the Wyoming Supreme Court. Wyoming also has state circuit courts, formerly county courts, of limited jurisdiction, which handle certain types of cases, such as civil claims with lower dollar amounts, misdemeanor criminal offenses, and felony arraignments. Circuit court judges also commonly hear small claims cases as well. Before 1972, Wyoming judges were selected by popular vote on a nonpartisan ballot. This earlier system was criticized by the state bar, which called for the adoption of the Missouri Plan, a system designed to balance judiciary independence with judiciary accountability. In 1972, an amendment to Article 5 of the Wyoming Constitution, which incorporated a modified version of the plan, was adopted by the voters. Since the adoption of the amendment, all state court judges in Wyoming are nominated by the Judicial Nominating Commission and appointed by the governor. They are then subject to a retention vote by the electorate 1 year after appointment. 125. Political history. Further information. Political party strength in Wyoming. Party registration by Wyoming County, March 2023. Republican is greater than or equal to 50%. Republican is greater than or equal to 60%. Republican is greater than or equal to 70%. Republican is greater than or equal to 80%. Republican 90%. Voter registration and party enrollment as of August 1, 2020 for 126. Party number of voters percentage. Republican 187,570 for 80.77%. Democratic 25,000, no party affiliation 17,080 for 7.36%. Libertarian 1,148 0.49%. Constitution 3,810.16%. Other. No labels 208 0.09%. Total 232,220 to 100.0%. Wyoming's political history defies easy classification. The state was the first to grant women the right to vote and to elect a woman governor, 127. On December 10, 1869, John Allen Campbell, the first governor of the Wyoming Territory, approved the first law in United States history explicitly granting women the right to vote. This day was later commemorated as Wyoming Day, 127. On November 5, 1889, voters approved the first constitution in the world granting full voting rights to women, 127. While the state elected notable Democrats to federal office in the 1960s and 1970s, politics have become decidedly more conservative since the 1980s, as the Republican Party came to dominate the state's congressional delegation. Today, Wyoming is represented in Washington by its two senators, John Barrasso and Cynthia Lummis, and its one member of the House of Representatives, Congresswoman Harriet Hageman. All three are Republicans. A Democrat has not represented Wyoming in the Senate since 1977 or in the House since 1978. The state has not voted for a Democrat for president since 1964, one of only 8 times since statehood. In the 2000 presidential election, George W. Bush won his second largest victory, with 69% of the vote. Former Vice President Dick Cheney is a Wyoming resident and represented the state in Congress from 1979 to 1989. The last time a Democrat won a statewide election in Wyoming was in 2006, when Democratic Governor Dave Frodenthal was re-elected to a second term by a wide margin, winning every county in the state. For 19 of Wyoming's 23 counties, 2006 marked the last time that they voted for the Democratic nominee in a statewide race. Of the remaining 4, Sweetwater County last voted Democratic in the 2008 U.S. House race and Laramie County last voted Democratic in the 2014 Superintendent of Public Instruction race. Leaving Teton and Albany is the only counties that Democrats are able to win. Teton, which is composed of affluent resort communities, is reliably Democratic, except in Republican landslides like the 2022 gubernatorial election. Albany, which contains the college town of Laramie, is more competitive. Republicans are dominant at the state level. They have held a majority in the state Senate continuously since 1936 and in the state House since 1964, though Democrats held the governorship for all but 8 years between 1975 and 2011. Uniquely, Wyoming elected Democrat Nellie Taylor Ross as the first woman in United States history to serve as state governor. She served from 1925 to 1927, winning a special election after her husband, William Bradford Ross, unexpectedly died a little more than a year into his term. 128. Wyoming retains the death penalty. Authorized methods of execution include the gas chamber. 129. Culture, sports. See also List of college athletic programs in Wyoming. Due to its sparse population, Wyoming lacks any major professional sports teams. The Gillette Mustangs, an indoor football team based in Gillette that began play in 2021 prior to their departure from the city in 2023, were previously the only professional team in the state. However, the Wyoming Cowboys and Cowgirls, particularly the football and basketball teams, are quite popular. Their stadiums in Laramie are about 7,200 feet, 2,200 meters above sea level. The highest in NCAA Division I. The Wyoming High School Activities Association also sponsors 12 sports, and there are 3 junior ice hockey teams, all of which are members of the NA3HL. Casper has hosted the College National Finals Rodeo since 2001. State symbols. For a more comprehensive list, see List of Wyoming state symbols. State flower of Wyoming. Indian paintbrush. List of all Wyoming state symbols. 1. State bird. Western meadowlark Sternella neglecta. State coin. Sacagawea dollar. State dinosaur. Triceratops. State emblem. Bucking horse and rider. State fish. Cutthroat trout Oncorhynchus clarkii. State flag. Flag of the state of Wyoming. State flower. Wyoming Indian paintbrush Costulea lineariifolia. State fossil. Nisha. State gemstone. Wyoming nephrite jade. State grass. Western wheatgrass Pascopyrum smithii. State insect. Sheridan's green hairstrake butterfly Calfree sheridani. State mammal. American bison bison bison. State motto. Equal rights. State nicknames. Equality state. Cowboy state. Big Wyoming. State reptile. Horn lizard Phrynosoma douglasi braviraster. State seal. Great Seal of the State of Wyoming. State song. Wyoming by Charles E. Winter and Georgie Knapp. State sport. Rodeo. State tree. Plains cottonwood populous Sargentine.